For me, I believe that funky to a lot of artists was just a stepping stone.
Right. Yep.
So it was a thing where, oh, cool, I'm gonna get big, and then I'm gonna switch and do some mad R&B thing where no one can really connect. You have to be in that world to really connect those records. You have to have a massive record mainstream for another to step into another kind of genre.
Okay, I want to say good evening to iLL Blue. What's going on, brothers?
What's up? Good, man.
I'm good, man. We're just having a really... It's always those ones where you have the conversations before the interview and you're like, maybe you should have left it on record. But first off, welcome, man. Thank you for coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Last minute, man. Now, individually, do you want to introduce yourselves?
James.
And I'm Darius.
And how did you guys, as cliche as it sounds, get together? Actually, when's the first time you guys actually met?
Probably about 2000.
2006, yeah. For a mutual friend. So I used to rap, and his he had a friend, and we was gonna do a record. Well, we done a record together, and it was.
Which I was gonna produce.
Yeah. James.
And he come to my house to record it, and that's when we linked up. And then we were just friends, and I was producing stuff for him, and then it wasn't to a few years later that we created iLL Blue.
So how did you rate the bars then?
Huh?
How did you rate his bars?
The bars was good. Like I don't know if he's gonna say what his name was or whatever, but
what was your rap name, bro?
Def One.
Def One.
Yeah, I don't know if
Def One.
I don't know if you will remember that. Yeah,
but Channel U.
Back in the Channel U days.
He had it popping on Channel U.
Yeah, so Def One went round his house, showed me some beats. Yeah. He had some like Dipset sounding beats, which was in them times. Yeah. And I was like, yo, this guy's sick. So we linked up, created a vibe. Actually started another group called G-Fam. So it was me, Princess Naya, and a guy called Hoodsie in G-Fam. So we done like an album. And then off the whim, Princess Naya wanted to make a funky house record. And so cool, let's do it.
Linked up with me again?
Went to James's house, and then that's how we co-produced the record called Frontline by Princess Naya. So that was our first like record together. And then from then, that was iLL Blue. The rest is history.
So the point when you first moving into production, like how did that? What sparked you to say, okay, look, I'm gonna?
Oh no, I was producing before because for my stuff, I used to produce the two big records that I had. Well, not big records, but records that was on like BBC Radio 1 and whatnot. I produced myself, so I wasn't. I've been producing for a long time beforehand, you know. But it was, as you're a rapper, you like to listen to other people's beats, and you know you get other beats from other places. But if you can't get no beats from nowhere else, I had to just make my own stuff, you know. So that's how I got into producing. So I was always there, but when we linked up, it was a good force.
So around like Channel U was a lot for that. That was like the only gateway.
Yeah, that was the only gateway.
Yeah, they had them funny I mean, I remember like
a lot of funny.
it was ringtones as well.
Ringtones was perfect. Yeah. A lot back then.
What those times there? So like when you're rapping and also you're producing, but you also at that point were still producing. What was kind of like the ambitions for music at that point, like 2008, 2009?
At that time, I was going. Well, just around that time, I was going uni, so I was studying engineering, audio engineering. So at this point, I was like, yeah, love to produce music, but is it a viable career path? You know, like where do you go to? Where do you hand your CV if you want to be a producer? But so I was studying sound engineering, and through my studies, I was looking at like post-production and engineering for film and stuff like that. So I was looking at potentially maybe doing that if the music thing didn't pan out. So always thinking about music or sound at some capacity as the career path. But yeah, wasn't sure if it was going to happen. Yeah.
And how about for you?
For me, it was just put videos out, put tunes out, whatever happens, happens. It wasn't really, obviously you wanted to get signed, that back then, but it was just the love of music. I would be in my bedroom just making a 17-track album, just, you know, like just for the love of it. Like, I started making albums in my bedroom in like the 90s, you know. So that's what it was really. And then obviously the progression was to try and get signed. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen. And then obviously we linked up. We started to just do our stuff on our own, and we realised that, you know, you can make money doing it by yourself, you know. So
that time, were there still white labels?
White labels are still out, yeah.
So, and why I bring that up is, like I spoke to Mega yesterday from So Solid, and he was just talking to me about just the old school hustle, and it's like, you said it as well, like, and also use like, is music viable? You know, can you make money? And I'm just trying to think, 2008, 2010, I was young. I didn't know how people were, how it was actually, if any way, like what were people making money from? Was it white labels? Was it just like PRS? I don't even know if people even knew what PRS was.
PRS was from early,
But I mean, like people, like, a lot of people didn't even know what PRS was. So I'm just saying, at that point, who and where were you getting your business like knowledge from?
I went and done a little course on it,
really?
But really, it was just when we linked up, it was just more about specials. So we used to sell our specials for like £50 a pop, DJ sets and remixes. Our first remix was on a white label. So man, I can't remember his name. We like this record. Can we press it on vinyl? We'll give you this, blah blah blah. And then that was our introduction. And all right, so we can, you know, get a little bit of change off, you know, making these records and sell these dubs and whatnot. So that's how we kind of.
So that was like early funky days.
Yeah, early funky days. Yeah.
I mean, funky still, as much as it's not commercially mainstream, but it still lives in a club. It still have like residencies.
Yeah.
What do you think happened? Because I remember there's like an artist called Egypt as well.
Yeah.
And she was very much like, it seemed like she was on that wave. And like when the funky house kind of like left, like a lot of artists seemed to go with it. What on the inside, what do you think happened to the sound and the scene? Why it didn't stay bubbling in the commercial world?
For me, I believe that funky to a lot of artists was just a stepping stone.
Right. Yeah.
So it was a thing where, cool, I'm gonna get big, and then I'm gonna switch and do some mad R&B thing where no one can really connect. You have to be in that world to really connect those records. You had to have a massive record mainstream for another to step into another kind of genre and make it happen. And I feel people rushed the process. And I felt if there was more artists that was making quality records within the funky scene and, you know, putting their videos out and being present on the socials and likable and whatnot. Well, socials wasn't really that.
Socials wasn't really popping like that, but there was like 3 or 4 acts that you could put a face to the name and that's their song. And then they actually had visuals, and then there was a campaign behind the song. Like a lot of the songs were, you just knew the song when you heard it in the club. So, you know, it wasn't like, do the public knows the music, but do they know the acts? So
to buy into
it, like how we have now, where you can buy into all the artists and go to see their shows and stuff.
I say for us as well, people didn't know who we was. They just knew the records. They didn't know we produced this.
We had a slew
of
big tunes in funky, and it wasn't until you say, oh yeah, we produced this tune, and they're like,
can we go through some of the songs that you produced in the
scene? So Frontline was the first one that we did, and we did a remix for Shiesty called Pull It, which was a huge tune. We had a song called Say Yes, it was big. We did a song for this kid called Dot Star. He was a Stick Up Skank, which was quite big.
Blue Magic,
which was like an instrumental, which was a big club tune.
Ton of remixes.
Loads of remixes
for Craig David, Cheryl Cole, to
Roll Deep,
so much
loads. So yeah, that's just a sum of the tunes that we did. But yeah, it was just like that. I don't think there was I don't think at the time the urban scene as well properly like embraced funky. Like some of the grime MCs didn't jump on it. It was like
some of them did though.
Some but not enough to say like, like this is actually a scene. Like so it left way for a lot of other acts that probably weren't well respected spitting wise,
to jump on,
and they jumped in and they weren't the best spitters. So, you know, it was like, you know, you had like nursery rhyme bars and hosting type bars, which was cool for in the club, but for like a scene and people, just wasn't. It didn't show us off in the best light at the time.
And then they got to a part where the songs were just really getting bad. Like, you had, what's it? The swine flu,
Skanks and all this stuff.
Like the skank thing, really, it went to another, like, Migraine Skank, cool.
Yeah.
That was you know, that was a.
Wasn't there like a Holy Ghost skank as well?
There was
too much. So many.
So much. And
it was fun in the clubs, but then to the point it got, that started to overshadow everything else.
Yeah.
Because at one point, like when, like, Danae had come up with Devil in a Blue Dress and Party Hard, like, it was about the songs. And there was still like vocal songs. And then when the skank songs came in, it brought in a different type of energy, which was great because you had like the songs for the girls, like the Kyla moments, the Malika goes, and then you had the skank songs, like, so you had different parts of the rave, and you could whine with a girl, you could turn up with your guys, it was great. But then the skank kind of took over the whole thing, and you know, so I think that's probably why, some of the reasons why it never really took off. But you saw like KTB when it had a big like top 5 with Lights On with Miss Dynamite. So it shows that the music had legs, but probably just wasn't the right time or the right acts to front it.
Okay, and I'm bad with names and songs. What's that tune that Georgia Smith had, which sounded like it was a bit like a, was it like a garagey?
It was a garage one.
Garagey,
Was that the one with Predator?
Yeah, Predator did it.
I can't remember the name of it.
But that, I think that, to your point, shows that when it's done well, it will live.
Oh, of course.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Remixes. So explain to me the process of remixes. Is it you guys just go and make your own remixes, then you present it to the artist and the label, then they make it an official situation, or you're already commissioned to do like remixes?
So most of the time you're commissioned. So how we got into the remix game is we just found an acapella online, like it was like a Lloyd, a Lloyd featuring a Lil Wayne. It was like a Lil Wayne and Lloyd tune.
Oh, was it you? That you?
No, was it?
No.
Yeah, it was another.
Girls Around the World or something like that. So we just did like a bootleg remix and we put it on MySpace.
Those times.
That shows some times. We put it on MySpace, and then a distributor saw it, pressed it up, released it. So I think off the back of that, that same distributor was linked with Shiesty. They were looking for a remix. We remixed Shiesty. And that Shiesty song blew up. And then we had labels start saying, oh, we've got this record by our act. Can you remix it for us? So that's how it starts. But so now all of our remixes are like commission based by labels.
So, okay, so, but then creatively then, what's the element of a remix? Like what, are you changing the genre? Are you changing like the tempo? I mean, like when you, I know it must differ from like obviously song to song, but how do you guys collectively work on a remix?
So when the label hollers at you, usually is if there's a reason why they want the song to be remixed, they want it to fit into a certain style or genre.
So I'll give you a bit of a brief then.
Yeah. So well, generally when like at the time, like when we were making funky, they're coming to us for a funky
remix.
So they want their record to get played in
the funky
clubs, in those club sets, or for those stations, radio stations or whatever. So, and generally, you know when they come to you what they want, because they just want your sound. It's like remixing is kind of like the flavour of the month, in a sense. Like if you're a producer and you've got a sound or a style that's working, they'll say, yeah, we want this from you. You know, can you add your touch to our record, and so we can live in other areas and other worlds.
Okay, so it seems like collectively, I'm not talking about like how much money you guys are making, but you guys picked up pretty early that there's money to be made in what it is that you do. And I look at a lot of producers who don't even look at the element of like remixing records, or don't even have that capability to even be sourced for that. But when you're doing those types of like campaigns for labels, how much creative freedom do you have? Like when they're saying, okay, look, we need this, is there ever times when you're sending them the track complete and they're like, oh, can you change this? Or do they just...
Sometimes they're like that. Sometimes they're like that, but not often. More they just go with we've been doing it for so long that if they've asked for something, we normally hit the nail on the head.
And they leave you to it.
And they just leave us to it.
Because essentially we're remixing the track in our specialist genre.
Yeah, in our world.
So you want our expertise on this tune. You know, so they will trust you. Like they might say, okay, cool, we love how you've chopped the vocal up. We might, some songs like a vocal might not lend itself well to a certain style, so you end up chopping it a lot and making like a dub edit of the track. And they might say, oh, this is great, but we need a bit more of the chorus because nobody will know what song it is or whatever. So they might ask for different edits and stuff like that. But never really a creative thing was, oh, can you change the bass line or change the drums? That never happens with us anyway.
Okay, so let's go from like 2010. Funky's no longer really doing what he's doing. Like 2010 to 12, it's like the Chip, Tiny, N-Dubs. Who else was prominent at that time? I think it was Chip, Tiny, N-Dubs. Yeah, Skepta was around.
Wretch 32.
Wretch
32. Chip, Tiny, Tinchy Strider.
Yeah. And Ironic. So in that space, in that time period, like, where were you guys fitting into the sound?
So on a production level, while this was happening, we wanted to get into produce for like those guys there that you mentioned. It was
we're still doing the bass stuff.
We're still doing like funky stuff.
With funky, with the commercial funk. Well, not the commercial funky. With the funky that was popping in 2010. It died, but we jumped into another scene, which was like labels like Numbers, Mad Tech. It was very more underground, more bass heavy. I mean, we did produce. We had an arm that was trying to produce for the likes of your Tinchy Striders and whatnot. But what we kind of done grassroots and organically was went into like a bassier kind of things. We're doing different shows, just like more of a cooler crowd kind of Shoreditches and
that's when we started to DJ across the pond.
Yeah, France, Denmark. We went somewhere else. It was a different kind of vibe, a different scene. While that was happening, because we didn't really produce nothing until...
No, we didn't. But like what I was going to say, it was good that you mentioned that. But what we wanted to, as producers, get into that world as well, producing. And I think the first taste of that was when we worked with SneakBo. Yeah. In the beginning of 2011, he had a tune. He'd just come out with Touch a Button. It was everywhere. But
shout out to SneakBo because that sound that he brought,
he was killing it. Like it was a new. I think that was one of the foundations of this whole Afro swing
100%.
moment that we're experiencing now. But it was new, but it was too hard to get played on the radio. So their whole idea was obviously electronic music. We had an understanding of dance. Like if we like fuse the two, it's always kind of worked wearing my Rolex XYZ. So there was like, that's a way to get onto radio. So we did the Wave, and that's how we kind of started getting our foot into that world. But at the same time, as Ill Blue artist DJs, we were producing like underground bass, more electronic sounding tunes.
But again, I'm just hearing you guys even talking about like those periods to be even doing a Shoreditch crowd. This is you lot are early adopters. Because like the average IG DJ is like, I'm down at the Ace Hotel, like, but you guys were doing this way before.
Fabric and all sorts.
All those places, man.
Well, so when you start working with SneakBo, how does that not become almost like this will now just be like, because you know you're saying you're like kind of 1 foot in, not 1 foot out, but you're in different worlds. How does that sound not overshadow the other things that you got going on that's taking you into the cool spots? Because SneakBo at that point he wasn't able to tour. Really, his music wasn't really traveling, if that makes sense. It was online, but it wasn't getting played everywhere.
Well, the wave, it was a bit more commercial. But it's still kind of, because we were playing the instrumental of the Wave in our sets. Like when we went Amsterdam, we could play that because it had that Dutch dance type of feeling. So, like it wasn't like the world was totally separate. Like we still could kind of cross over in terms of with the production stuff. So it didn't feel like the worlds were very far away from each other.
Okay, so I'm just doing my math. So at this point here, like around that period, you guys are probably working together for like 4 or 5 years?
2008, 9...
About 4, 4 or 5 years.
So at that point there, like what difficulties were you guys coming through, like actually just being in the music industry or being producers? Like,
I don't know if there was any difficulties, you know? I just think
I guess you just want to get on more cuts. You just want more cuts with the acts that were popping at the time. You know, you just want, you know what I mean? Like any producer wants, you know, I want to work with this person, I want to work with this person. How can I get here and how can I advance and get here? Like the wave was good because at the time SneakBo was independent and that charted. I think it went like number 48 in the charts, and then went on Radio 1 playlist daytime. Like it went B-list, I think. That was very big for SneakBo, who's off the roads. So that was good. That started something. So we're like, we tasted this now. We're like, cool. Like, what's next? So yeah, we were just looking for, you know, just that next thing.
So at that point, did you guys have a publishing deal at that point?
No, but that song sparked our publishing situation that we went into after.
Okay, and for those who don't, I mean, I get it, but explain to people what the benefits are of a publishing deal for producers like yourself.
Basically, the benefits are getting a publishing deal. If you get a bit of money where you can kind of live and do your work on your profession, work on your music without having to go to go to another, like a 9 to 5 and then go and do it. You can kind of take it full time for a period of time. And they get you into sessions. They hook up certain things for you. Some publishers do, some publishers don't. And just give you opportunities to further your work.
Syncs,
you know,
they can
syncs
potentially plug your music in with syncs for games or movies, or you know, and they collect your royalties.
They administer all of that side for you, so you don't have to worry about it.
So how do we get to the point where like you guys actually signed your first deal at that point, which was with iLL Records? Like what sparked the interest for the labels to say, look, we want to work with iLL Blue?
Do you know what? It was a thing where obviously we got a publishing deal, and then we got introduced to a guy called Jake Isaac. Was it Jake Isaac through the publishing deal? It was. So Jake Isaac, I think, and then we done a record with a girl called Max Marshall. So we had Jake Isaac record, and our management company, our management, Climax Management, it was a thing where, look, we want to put our records, like our feature records, and, you know, see what happens off the back of that. So we put out, it was Fallout, right?
Yeah, we put Fallout with Jake Isaac out first. And then that was like a soft one, and then we put out Blue Magic. And Blue Magic, Annie Mac made it. These times, Annie Mac was like, if you got played on Annie Mac, expect the door to knock for labels coming. Especially for, obviously, she's the house, the dance music connoisseur.
She's the connoisseur, the tastemaker. Everybody goes to, and everybody's like, oh, how she plays it. Your record's got legs, and then the door knocked. We had about quite a few labels, quite a few offers came in, and then.
This is around
2000.
Beginning of 2014. So this is like the house boom. So the house boom has hit at this point. So you've got Disclosure, Gorgon City doing really well. So, like, obviously at that point, as you know, labels are like, okay, we want to sign our own. So, you know, so it was like, we had offers, and then it went from there.
And how did the James Morrison track come about then?
So, we'd released a couple of EPs, and then we released a single with iLL that featured James Morrison. So James Morrison's also signed to iLL, so it's like a label mate type of thing. So features like that are quite easy to do, you know, as long as obviously both artists are up for it.
And I think, and I guess probably the point I'm trying to also get at is that every sound you guys have been able to live in. Do you understand? Like, we've gone from funky, we've gone to like SneakBo, The Wave, we've gone to even like tunes of James Morrison, you know, and obviously the music that you're making now. Like, I don't know if there's that many producers that I know of that really can lay claim over a span of period that they were able to be that versatile. Does that make sense?
No, I hear that.
I hear that.
That's one thing I figured out in, like, if you're doing music in this country, like, we're a small country. So, like, we don't have the
freedom.
We don't have the freedom to milk a sound like they do in the States. And when you watch like all the big super producers, they were able to like milk it. Like
Lil Jon can milk crunk.
Lil Jon. You've had DJ Mustard. You've had Swiss Beats. Like
could stay in one region, one state.
You know what I mean? Like Timbaland's reinvented themselves a few times.
Neptune's was just that same drum pattern.
And because their market is so big, they can do that. You know, so the market won't get fed up of a few tunes that sound similar. But here, in this country, we've got about like 2 songs, 3 tops, and then you have to change it up. Otherwise, you know, we've seen that trick before, type of thing. So you have to be versatile. So we've always peeped that. So it's like, yeah, cool. As producers, like we see what's happening. All right, cool. There's pop things in now, and now it's this and this and this and this, and we can see how music moves up and down. So you just have to adapt.